The desert near the Arizona territory burned beneath a dying sun, the sky streaked in violent shades of orange and crimson as if it, too, had been wounded. Smoke drifted in thin spirals from what had once been a small Apache camp. The attack had come at dawn, fast, loud, merciless. By midday, the raiders were gone, leaving behind scattered bodies, broken arrows, and the heavy silence of devastation. Ayanna stumbled through the rocks beyond the ravaged camp, each step sending a sharp wave of agony through her side. When the shooting began that morning, she had rushed to help the children escape toward the canyon trails. She remembered the thunder of rifles, the screams of horses, the acrid smell of gunpowder. Then the impact, like being struck by a hammer of fire. The bullet had torn into her flesh just below her ribs. All day she hid among sun-scorched boulders, pressing trembling fingers against the wound to slow the bleeding. The desert heat baked her skin, dried her throat, and blurred her vision. She whispered prayers to the spirits of her ancestors, asking for strength, not to live, but to endure with honor. As dusk settled and shadows stretched long across the sand, hoofbeats echoed faintly in the distance. Her heart jolted. Through the haze of pain, she saw a lone rider crest the ridge. He moved cautiously, scanning the destruction below. The man was tall in the saddle, hat pulled low, coat coated in dust from hard travel. He didn't look like the others who had attacked, but he was one of them. A cowboy. An enemy. She tried to crawl deeper into the rocks, but her strength betrayed her. The world tilted. Darkness crowded her vision. The rider spotted movement and urged his horse forward. He dismounted quickly when he saw her collapse. Boots crunched against gravel as he approached, hands raised slightly to show he carried no rifle. "I ain't here to hurt you," he said, voice low and steady. Ayanna's fingers twitched toward the small knife at her belt, but they wouldn't close around it. The pain was too much. The cowboy knelt beside her and gently turned her onto her back. When he pulled his hand away from her side, it came back slick with blood. His expression hardened, not with anger, but with concern. "You've got a bullet in you," he muttered, glancing toward the darkening horizon. "If I don't get it out, you won't see morning." Her eyes fluttered open as he reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a long metal instrument that glinted in the fading light. Fear froze her breath. The abandoned miner's shack groaned under the pressure of the desert wind, its warped wooden boards rattling as night settled heavily around them. Inside, the air smelled of dust, old ash, and whiskey. Cole had laid Ayanna carefully on a rough plank table he'd cleared of debris. The lantern beside her flickered, throwing long, unsteady shadows across the walls. Her breathing was shallow, uneven. Every rise of her chest seemed to cost her something. Cole worked quickly but deliberately. From his saddlebag, he pulled a small bottle of whiskey, a folded strip of clean cloth, a curved hunting knife, and a pair of long metal tweezers dulled from use. He poured whiskey over the blade and the tweezers, the sharp scent filling the cramped room. Ayanna's eyes widened when she saw the steel glint under the lantern light. "Wait, you're putting that inside me," she whispered, her voice fragile but edged with fear. Though her English carried the rhythm of her native tongue, her meaning was clear. Cole paused, meeting her gaze. "It's the only way," he said quietly. "That bullet's still in there. If it stays, infection will take you slow. This'll hurt, but it'll give you a chance." Her fingers tightened against the rough wood beneath her. Trust did not come easily, especially not now. Not after what men like him had done to her people only hours before. He seemed to understand the doubt in her eyes. Slowly, he removed his hat and set it aside. "I ain't with the ones who did this," he said. "And I won't let you die if I can help it." The wind howled through a crack in the wall as if urging a decision. After a long, trembling moment, she gave a faint nod. Cole handed her a folded strip of leather. "Bite down," he instructed softly. When the blade touched her skin, she stiffened. The cut was careful, controlled, widening the wound just enough. Pain exploded through her body, white and blinding. Her scream was muffled by the leather between her teeth. Sweat dripped down Cole's temple as he worked. He steadied his hands, pushing the tweezers into the wound with agonizing precision. Blood welled around the metal. For a terrifying second, he feared he wouldn't find it. Then he felt resistance. He adjusted his grip, pulled slowly. A metallic clink echoed as the flattened bullet dropped into a tin cup beside the lantern. Relief barely had time to settle before fresh blood flowed. "Stay with me," he urged urgently, pressing clean cloth hard against her side. Her eyes fluttered, fighting to focus on his face. The lantern light blurred. The pain faded into a distant roar. Then darkness swallowed her whole. The first night after the bullet was removed felt longer than any Cole had ever known. The desert wind never truly stopped, it pressed against the miner's shack in restless waves, slipping through cracks and carrying with it the distant cries of coyotes. Inside, the lantern burned low, its flame shrinking and stretching as if struggling to survive, much like the woman lying on the table before him. Ayana's skin burned beneath his touch. Fever had taken hold by midnight. Cole dipped a cloth into a tin cup of water and pressed it gently to her forehead. Her breathing was uneven, sometimes quick and shallow, sometimes frighteningly slow. He had seen men die from infected wounds before. Strong ranch hands reduced to trembling shadows in a matter of days. He refused to let that happen again, not here, not like this. She murmured in her native tongue, words he couldn't understand. Her hands twitched at her sides as if reaching for someone who wasn't there. Once, she cried out sharply, eyes flying open, staring at something beyond the shack's ceiling. He leaned forward quickly. "You're safe," he said firmly. "There's no one here. Just me." But he knew safety was a fragile promise. By the second day, her fever worsened. Sweat soaked her clothes, and he changed the bandages twice, careful not to reopen the wound. The bleeding had slowed, but the flesh around it looked angry and swollen. He poured a little whiskey onto the stitched cut to keep it clean, even as her body flinched in protest. He hadn't meant to speak aloud, yet the silence weighed too heavily. "I wasn't always runnin' with bad men," he said one night, sitting in the chair beside her. His hat rested on his knee, fingers tracing its worn brim. "Started as a ranch hand. Thought I was protectin' folks. Then one day I realized we were the ones folks needed protection from." Her face softened briefly in sleep, though whether she heard him, he couldn't tell. On the fourth morning, something changed. The heat beneath her skin eased. Her breathing steadied. When she opened her eyes this time, they were clear, not clouded by fever, not lost in dreams. He nearly dropped the cup in his hand. "You're still here," he said quietly, relief breaking through his usually guarded tone. She studied him for a long moment, as if measuring truth itself. "You did not let me cross into the spirit world," she said weakly. Cole let out a slow breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "No," he replied. "Not today." For the first time since the attack, the shack felt less like a place of dying, and more like a place where something fragile had survived. By the time Ayana could stand without swaying, the desert had grown deceptively calm. The sky stretched wide and blue above the miner's shack, as though it had forgotten the smoke and blood from days before. Cole stepped outside that morning to refill the water canteen and froze at the sight of dust rising along the far ridge. Riders. Even at a distance, he recognized the formation. 5 men. Armed. Moving with purpose. His jaw tightened. "They found me," he muttered. Inside the shack, Ayana noticed the shift in his posture when he returned. She followed him outside despite the ache still pulling at her side. When she saw the approaching figures, understanding hardened her expression. "They are yours," she said. "They used to be," Cole replied grimly. "If they see you, they won't ask questions." Ayana straightened, though her strength was not yet fully returned. "I do not hide." He looked at her, really looked at her, and realized she wasn't the wounded woman he'd carried from the rocks anymore. There was fire in her eyes now. Not reckless fire. Steady fire. He moved quickly, retrieving his rifle from the saddle and checking the chamber. After a brief hesitation, he handed her a second weapon. She accepted it without fear, positioning herself beside the shack wall for support. The riders closed in, slowing when they spotted him standing in the open. One of them spat into the dirt. "Well, I'll be damned," the leader called out. "Turner's playin' house with an Apache." Cole didn't lower his rifle. "Turn around," he said evenly. "This ends here." Laughter answered him. The first shot shattered the stillness. Wood splintered near Cole's shoulder as he fired back. Gunfire erupted in sharp, violent bursts, echoing across the open desert. Ayanna held her ground, steadying the rifle the way her father once taught her. When she pulled the trigger, one rider fell from his saddle. The fight was brief but brutal. 2 men lay unmoving. The others retreated, cursing, dragging the wounded with them as they disappeared into the dust. Silence returned, heavy and ringing. Cole staggered backward, lowering his rifle. Blood seeped through his sleeve where a bullet had grazed deep into his shoulder. His knees buckled. Ayanna caught him before he hit the ground, guiding him carefully against the shack wall. He gave a weak, breathless huff. "Guess it's my turn now." She helped him inside and pushed him onto the table where she had nearly died days earlier. When she reached for the needle and thread from his saddlebag, his eyes widened faintly. "Wait, you're putting that inside me?" he asked, managing the ghost of a smile. Her lips curved slightly despite everything. "It is the only way," she replied. Outside, the desert wind carried away the last of the gun smoke, leaving behind something neither of them had expected to find: shared survival, and the beginning of trust.